Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Which is the pick of the bunch of the first round games of the Call of Duty World Championship? The OpTic boys have given their opinion on one specific game especially they believe is going to be really interesting in the first round of this World Championship, which is the most likely series for an upset, with top teams all playing teams that theoretically should be below them, although at the most recent event, of course, it's OpTic themselves that did not place as well as Los Angeles Guerrillas. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Lots to get into today, especially on the Esports World Cup side, right? Because there's been a lot of questions over the last few days. Which teams are even going to be there in the first place? Which of the CDL franchises are going to accept what we believe is an invitation? You'd assume that probably all of them will, although it's not necessarily so clear that's actually going to be the case as it stands. And Tommy says, got an opportunity for any CDL or Challengers players that want to compete at the Esports World Cup. If you're not already playing at the event and want the chance to qualify, message me. I'm putting together a roster for a closed qualifier, full rosters preferred, but open to all. I won't be playing, simply putting forward a squad to compete there, right? So we believe there's going to be these qualifiers around the world in which teams can qualify for the Esports World Cup, and you know, let's say there's 4 spots open for that, and then the other 12 spots are going to go to the CDL teams. But let's say 1 or 2 of the CDL teams don't accept the invitation, because we're still not really sure what's happening there. We're pretty sure they've had to say yes or no by now, but they haven't necessarily had to announce what they're doing by now, which is you know, the other kind of piece of the puzzle here. But still, Tommy's saying, hey, you know, I'm going to try and put together a team to hopefully they can qualify. I'm not going to play. Of course, Tommy, former European COD pro for many years, but now moved over to the Warzone side. Didn't qualify, I think, recently for the World Series Warzone, but, you know, still a notable player in that community. This, though, is pretty funny. So, Shifty, right? The guy who won the World Series Warzone last year and then literally just went to Riyadh a couple of weeks ago and won the Warzone World Cup over there. And this is the classic, you know, the pros always take the mick out of this guy, right? Because after he won last year's World Series Warzone, he said, oh, well, maybe I'll consider a CDL move if the bag is right, type thing, right? Kind of implying that, oh, he's going to get so many offers coming through the door and he's not just going to accept the Vegas Legion offer for 50k, but, you know, a player that clearly is talented, but doesn't really have the experience playing on the level that would be required to actually become a competent, competitive player in many different domains. But he says in the replies, I think we get to prep it and see what 4 Warzone guys can do, he says. Now, this would be very interesting to see. And now, like, Shifty kind of feels like he's all talk in some ways, like he'll say this. Will it actually happen? I don't know. Will Tommy be down? I don't know. But it would be kind of interesting to see if they put together a team of 4 Warzone guys, tried to qualify through the qualifiers, and if they made it, especially given, you know, these guys representing Falcons, there could be something in that for, you know, the way the tournament is being run. But as Fellow says, indeed, a bye round that sounds fantastic, right? So I thought this is pretty funny, really, implying that, yeah, if you guys qualify, well done, great. We're going to get an easy 3-0 dub in the first round, whoever plays you, and then we're going to move on for the rest of the tournament, right? Because it's going to be like a GSL style group. You'll get the 16 teams. They'll be seeded into 8 or 4 groups of 4, and then the top 2 teams win 2 before you lose 2 go through. The bottom 2 teams lose 2 before you win 2. They go home, and then it's an 8-team single in bracket, I'm pretty sure, from there to the end of the tournament. So, you know, not the best tournament format you're ever going to find, but nonetheless, a pretty good one. And of course, it's possible, as Fellow says, that that would get some teams more easily through to the next round if they were able to have a free dub in the first round, because every group, I suppose, is going to have one of these qualifier teams, one of which may be a team like this. But would be interesting to see if some of the Warzone guys give it a go, and actually who will qualify for that, and even how qualification works, because Clay was tweeting the other day saying, all right, I'm no longer on Ravens, how do I qualify? How does it work? Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to play with? And maybe he saw Tommy's tweet and thought, you know what, maybe there is something in that. Quickly, on the AR Player of the Year nominees that we did on the Breaking Point side, based on you know, who people voted for and all this type of stuff. So these are the 4 we've gone for. Of course, Scrappy's got to be there. I think from the FaZe side, you can choose a couple. I think really from, you know, you look at Subliners, the other top team, there wasn't really a big standout there. Like, Skyz wasn't as good this season as maybe he has been before. Again, HyDra's been a bit of a standout. Sib has been good towards the end of the year, absolutely. I think if it was just the last 2 months, Sib would probably be on here, but he wasn't quite as good at the start of the year. Cellium, Drazah. Difficult to say, I would say, like, who's actually been better between Cell and Draz. I think you can definitely argue it either way, to be honest. In certain moments, I think, well, maybe on the course of the year, Cell's been a little bit stronger, but I think in general, Drazah's been more impactful for the team. And I know there's been talk about FaZe over the last couple of days from Ben and from others. Like, if FaZe don't win champs, do they need to blow it up? Like, genuinely, should they consider making a roster change to the team? And that is a big question. It's a difficult question to answer. We may discuss it in more detail tomorrow. But I think if you're looking at that team and you're thinking of someone to potentially consider a change for, you know, maybe Cellium is the guy to look at in some levels, right? I don't really think you want to split up the Tiny Terrors and Cell, while obviously an incredible player, if you're going to make a change, I mean, it's just impossible to think about what you would change on FaZe, really. But if something needed to change and they thought, you know what, enough's enough, we've got to win more than we are, then who do you look at, right? You might drop Drazah, get somebody else, and then there was an argument to say that when Arcetes was there and they had their really successful season, Arcetes' comms were maybe a little bit better than we've had from, you know, Drazah and maybe even Slasher and others over the last couple of years, and maybe it's a comms thing again, which is what I talk about in the finals. But you've also got to remember that this FaZe team, they didn't lose a map until they got to the grand finals at Major 4, and then they lost the grand finals, which is, you know, that is classic FaZe. The SMGs, by the way, obviously Dashy was on there as well, which I think is justified, certainly the way that he's played for OpTic this year from an objective point of view as well. The SMGs, I think, is a little bit more straightforward, right? Like, obviously HyDra's going to be here, obviously Simp is going to be here, and then you've got CleanX, who was great for Toronto, and then Shotzzy, who was definitely, you know, the other one from OpTic Texas, right? So pretty cool that on the SMG side, I would say that they have 4 players from all 4 top teams, right? And, you know, on some level, the player of the year here may well very much depend on who wins the World Championship, right, from an SMG perspective, right? Because, you know, if Toronto win champs, you can make the argument that CleanX was, you know, potentially SMG player of the year. I guess the reality is it's probably going to go to Simp or HyDra regardless, because, you know, one of those guys is quite possibly going to be MVP as well, but it depends. Regular season, including the World Championship, there are some discussions, but, you know, these are the nominees for the Breaking Point Awards that we are doing shortly after the World Championship. I think it's going to be running right at the start of August. This is just pretty funny, like a little look back in the past here that Capsidol found. This is a clip of Mohawk looking up to a window on Berlin back in Vanguard, where it's literally impossible for anyone to be, but, you know, I think it was pretty funny just to see this, because Scrap at this point was not in the Pro League, right? He was on the Toronto Ultra Academy, where Mohawk also was, with Vikul, Hixie, and Scrap on that team, up against the Los Angeles Gorillas boys of Slasher, Asim, Spartan, Hook. I mean, what a wild timeline that was. And as Dashy says, if someone was able to get up there, that he's getting absolutely ripped. And Scrappy's like, I was mind-blown in that. Like, why was this guy looking up there? What was he thinking about at the time? But let's talk about the World Championship, because, you know, everything leads to Dallas right now, and it's not many days away at all until things get underway. You know, today's Monday, Thursday, these matches officially begin. So as OpTic say, you know, the Major 4 recap the other day, they were talking about the possibilities going into the World Championship and exactly what this is going to be looking like. The first round games are the most important ones, right? You've got to start off on a good trend. Winning champs from losers round 1 realistically is not going to be happening, right? And the majority of the favourites will probably win the first round games. However, will every favourite win the first round game? So the OpTic guys are kind of looking through the list and saying, okay, if there's a pick of the bunch here, I think lots of fans would probably say the pick of the bunch might be OpTic themselves against Los Angeles Gorillas, just because, sure, OpTic are going to be favoured in the series by the bookies odds or whatever, but at the end of the day, Gorillas placed top 3 last event, OpTic placed top 12, so there is that dilemma as well. But the OpTic guys are looking at one specific series that they think is kind of exciting.
CDL champs next week. First match against LAG. Wait, bro, like when you were on Thieves, did you guys actually always lose to them or no?
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm telling you.
I mean, even this year.
Bro, it didn't matter what iteration of the roster they had, we were losing.
It looks good for you, though.
Even back when Silly was on the team, like, it didn't matter who was on the team.
It looks good for you, though, because now they're still losing. So it's like,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's not.
I don't know what it is. We just cannot beat them.
But yeah, LAG first round, that's going to be good. And then who we play, the winner of Thieves or Ultra, that's going to be a good match too.
Yeah, I feel like all these matches, even that Subliner series is low-key a sleeper.
That's a sleeper series. I feel like because they're both good S&D teams.
That's the 04 versus Dante.
That's a little bro.
That's the rival.
That's that little man. It's that little man. You got the majors.
That's like whoever's a little bro.
Yeah, I can see that, right?
But
Chance gonna be lit though.
Nah, it's gonna be fire.
No, it's gonna be.
I can't wait, bro. I can't wait.
I'm just excited to play at the venue. The 360 angle is something that we haven't had in I think ever.
The bowl or whatever.
Yeah, because think about it, like every other.
Not.
I don't think we've ever played at like something.
Oh no,
we
we did play like stadiums,
like
but they cut like half the stadium off. So like, I remember in World War II we had a stadium event.
Like we've played at like those like big ass
didn't have the whole 360 like look down.
We're
in the middle, right? In the middle of the whole thing. Yeah, that's fire.
Let me fire.
So a few reasons really why this series was interesting. I thought it was cool that they noted like the search and destroy stuff, right? Because Subliners, they won at the most recent major. They beat FaZe when it mattered, especially in some search and destroys. But really it was their respawn that was actually quite dominant, right? I mean, Simp was going off a lot of the time. HyDra was going off a lot of the time. They were crushing teams New York in the hard points to, you know, to make their tournament run all the way to winning Major 4. Their search and destroy wasn't absolutely crushing the entire stage. And, you know, they lost a few important ones, even when they got reverse swept online by the Los Angeles Thieves. That wasn't a good loss either. So playing Surge, a team that is going to be well prepared and well drilled, I think that's the point. The thing is for New York is that I think they are probably the best prepared and the best drilled team in the entire game. Like, I think their coaching staff, their mentality, the way they approach things, we certainly saw that at last year's World Championship, is probably the best of anyone in the entire league. And that's why, you know, it's difficult to look at a team opposing Subliners and say, okay, they're going to out-prepare them. I don't really think they are. Obviously, it's a matter of execution as well, though, at some point or another. And that's when this series is quite fascinating, because 04, we know, a great search and destroy player, great mind for the game in search. Sure, his numbers overall in the respawns might not be anything crazy, but it's still notable that in a Game 5 situation, a Game 2 situation, he is going to be a threat. I don't think that Seattle are going to win this series before 5. If they do win, I think it's going to have to be in 5. But it is also, as the guys noted, the Sib versus 04 little man match, right? We saw this big time earlier in the season, right? When Sib was obviously talking a bit of trash, 04 came back and said, you know, stop costing your team, little man. And to be fair, since then, obviously he's taken it personal, right? Sib said, oh, like, if I ever lose you again, I'm chopping my balls off, or whatever he said. And since then, he's beat him every single time. But as we saw back at Major 4, Miami, they'd lost to OpTic every single time they played since way back at the start of January, right? In January, there was that famous series that happened. Miami took down OpTic, and then after that, OpTic have now come with a vengeance every single series since, until they played at Major 4 when Miami got the better of them, right? So you never really know. You know, you can win the matchup, you can win the head-to-head, but then when push comes to shove at the big tournament, maybe this is when the upset happens. So you look at the first round games, I think FaZe Heretics should be a FaZe dub. I don't, you know, do Miami believe they can beat them? I think that's a question as well. OpTic Gorillas is definitely an interesting one. We've talked about that before. Ultra Thieves, my feeling is here that Thieves can put up a fight, but, you know, we've seen them play top teams before, especially when there's a big crowd, especially when there's big pressure on, and I don't know if Thieves quite have, you know, the mustard, or whatever you want to say, the minerals, to actually get over the line in a series like that. So I feel like an Ultra 3-2 is kind of written all over a series like this, to be fair. But, you know, so I think that FaZe and Ultra will win. I don't know about the OpTic one, and I think that Subliners could win, but I kind of agree with the OpTic guys that if there was one game I'm looking at here, it's probably this one, just because, you know, Rambo and the team over there is going to be, they're going to be very well prepared for this New York series. And I think that's what's kind of fascinating, is that as the tournament progresses, you more tend to see, okay, who's just the best teams. But in the first round, when you've known these games now for 2 weeks, there can be so much preparation that goes into it, right? Subliners can be well prepared for Surge, but also Surge can be well prepared for New York, and I think that is going to be an important factor. But New York full well know this. They're not going to fall into that trap. But, you know, let's say Surge bring a completely different look in Search and Destroy, then it's a pretty interesting series. And there's a bit of a, you know, whole grudge match situation going on as well behind the scenes, which is worthy of consideration, right? So, you know, 5th seed of the World Championship for the Subliners, or for the Surge, sorry, that's why they play New York. So theoretically, of all the teams, yes, they were 16 and 24 season record, but they had just about good enough LAN placings to kind of justify them being a competitive force here towards the World Championship. So we'll see if that continues. As always, very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just one final thing here from Clayster. As always, the guys playing Valorant manages to find a way to fall off the map. This is the classic Clay shenanigans and behavior. I don't know, like, when you watch Clay fall off the map, sometimes I do wonder if it's intentional or not, but I think just the fact that it's been a case for so long now makes me think it can't be. And, you know, here goes Clay again. If you guys aren't familiar with this meme, it was really the jetpack era, certainly Black Ops 3 especially, where Clay would just be falling off the map all the time. And it's actually a meme across all sorts of esports now. If you see someone fall off the map here on aBeZy in Valorant, is what this new map's called, you'll see people in the chat spamming Clay, because it's kind of like a known meme across the esports world. It was talked about in Counter-Strike on maps like Vertigo before, so even with a neon, like, Kaiser can't keep himself on the map here. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.